So what can you tell us about these new strikes as you understand what's happening?
Yeah. Well, it's part of a larger, a very dangerous game, right? So the Iranians are viewing this conflict as one big conflict. So when Israel, bombs in Lebanon, as they are, they regard that as a violation of the ceasefire. And I don't know all of the circumstances, but when a U.S. Apache helicopter goes down and we retaliate, you're into a world where they, of course, are also going to retaliate. And the reason that's a scary thing is because they have the ability. They have thousands of missiles, thousands of drones, and they don't necessarily have the ability to do a lot of damage to the United States military in the area, although we worry about that, but they have the ability to basically destroy the energy infrastructure in the UAE and in Qatar. They have the ability to ask the Houthis to close the strait through which oil is flowing right now in the Red Sea. It's the Bab al-Mandab. The Houthis can close that. They have a lot of cards to play, and all of those cards point in one direction, which is gasoline prices going very, very high, a lot higher than they are right now for the American people. And that's why you're seeing, for all of Hegseth's bluster, that's why you're seeing these statements about how we're being defensive and proportionate and everything, because they know that Iran can make this situation a lot worse for the American consumer than it is today.
I want to ask you about those gas prices in a moment, but first, what you said about the Iranian military, right? Trump has said, and we were just playing some of it, over and over and over and over and over, that Iran's military is decimated, obliterated at the bottom of the sea, right? Pick your choice on any given day. But obviously it's not. And according to a CIA assessment seen by the New York Times, Iran still has 70% of its missile launchers, 70% of its missile stockpile from before the war. And by the way, those numbers from the CIA assessment are several weeks old. So if anything, those numbers have gone up rather than down in the past few weeks. I'm just curious, Congressman, when you take a step back, what has Trump accomplished from the war?
Well, I mean, it's there for all to see, right? We took a bad supreme leader, killed him, and replaced him with a much worse son who is probably more inclined to pursue a nuclear weapon, who is much more ideologically out there. We showed the Iranians, or I should say the Iranians were shown two things that they didn't know before. Number one, can their regime survive a U.S. military attack? We know the answer to that question today is yes. And something that had never been tested before, can the Iranians close the Strait of Hormuz? Well, now we know the answer to that question, too. So the achievements here, and Americans feel this every single day as they fill up their gas tanks at $1.50 a gallon higher than they did before President Trump, without consulting Congress, wandered into this war. The results are there for all to see. And the problem is, there's two choices right now. Pete Hegseth can pound his chest and say, we're going to somehow obliterate more of the military, and you're exactly right. They still have the capability to do what they need to do to create a lot of pain, or the president can take a bad deal. And that's an ugly statement, because the deal that the president is going to eventually take, and make no mistake, he's going to take that deal, is going to be a really bad deal. It's probably going to be far short of the deal, the nuclear deal that the Obama administration was able to negotiate back in 2015.
And I guess at some level, any deal starts with opening the Strait of Hormuz, which was the status quo prior to the war itself. And to that effect, Trump is now saying that the U.S. military has been involved in what he calls a quote-unquote secret mission supporting oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz. He says that has resulted in more than 100 million barrels passing through. Obviously, if you look on, shipping and watching ships go, you don't see that. And then he also said this.
I can say it now. Something you didn't know. Do you know we've been taking out millions of barrels of oil? Nobody knows it. You know who doesn't know about it? Iran, until right now.
I guess he's implying millions of their barrels that they are selling at obviously hugely inflated prices to finance the Iranian regime. What do you know about what he's saying there, about that Iran didn't until right now know we're taking millions of their barrels of oil and this 100 million barrels that Trump says he's actually helped get through the strait?
Yeah, well, look, a lot of that is just flat out untrue, right? And remember the record here, right? This war was going to be over in a couple of days. For the last 3 months, the Iranians have been 2 or 3 days or maybe a week or 2 weeks away from striking a deal. So let's just agree that the president has precisely zero credibility on anything that he says about the Iran war. But look, you don't need to be an intelligence expert to understand that in the Strait of Hormuz, you're not moving anything in secret. With a good pair of binoculars on either coast, you can see what's happening, set aside the satellite imagery that people have access to. So now, where he's not wrong, and I'm just back from Ukraine after a week and a half, is that the president decided to let the Russians sell their oil. And so, you know, the Russians are now selling oil that otherwise would not get sold, taking those dollars to attack the Ukrainians who are sending people to the Gulf to protect our folks because they know something about drone warfare. So, I mean, this is just a, you know, I can't think of an unprofane way to say it, but,
Yep.
but it is a really
I'm
ugly
thinking of a
situation.
certain word, too, that describes what you just described. I guess it starts with
Dumpster
cluster,
fire,
and it's not
dumpster fire.
munitions. Yeah,
That's
we'll go-
safer.
okay.
That's safe for families.
Congressman Hyams, I appreciate your time, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Erin.